Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I'm John, this is Many a True Nerd, and welcome to my Fallout 4 character build guide, which is kind of designed to kind of help people plan out how they're going to build their characters in Fallout 4. Because obviously Fallout 4 is coming up very, very soon indeed. Very excited. And I'm pretty sure that once it does come out, we all kind of want to get into playing it, and if we kind of get it and then have to spend the first 2 hours umming and ahhing about where to put special points, that's not going to be helpful. Because of course many Fallout players know what their preferred style of fighting and working around the world in Fallout is. The problem is, of course, in Fallout 4 there's been a very major change to the special system beyond the mechanical changes what we've discussed in previous parts. As a reminder, in both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, when you built a character, you got 40 special points to distribute. So in other words, everything could be 5 across the board, and then you'd have an additional 5 points to spend elsewhere, which meant with a single dump stat, i.e. a stat that you'd reduce to 1, you could have 2 stats at 9 and the rest quite happily in the middle at 5, which allowed you to create pretty darn powerful specialised characters pretty much from level 1. That's not going to be the case in Fallout 4. As a reminder, instead of 40 special points to distribute, we're only going to have 28. And you cannot reduce anything to 0. The lowest value that a special can be is 1, so everything has to be 1 across the board as minimum, which means actually we've only got 21 special points to distribute. So I think some people are in for a bit of a culture shock when they arrive in Fallout 4, because we're not really used to building characters that have multiple ones. We're used to characters that are actually pretty damn good in terms of special right off the bat. The way that perks work in Fallout 4 also mean that it's incredibly important to get your initial special distribution right, because now you can take ranks of incredibly powerful perks at level 2 as long as you meet the special requirement for them. So getting that initial special distribution is absolutely essential. So this is just my attempt, based on everything that we know about special, everything that we know about the perks, to try and give some advice as to what an optimal build would be in terms of your initial special point distribution for each different type of character that you might want to play at, looking at some of the big archetypes that have been present in the previous games. So let's start off by discussing the melee character, the character designed specifically for either melee or unarmed combat. And this guy has changed an awful lot from the days of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Let's talk about what his special distribution ought to be. I'd strongly recommend you start off with Strength 9. As a reminder, the way that damage is calculated has now changed somewhat. Say if you're talking about how much damage you're going to do with, say, your bare fist for the sake of simplicity, the damage that you do with a bare fist hit is going to be calculated as a function of 2 things, which is how many ranks have you taken of the Iron Fist perk, so in other words that will give you bonuses to unarmed fighting, but also how many special points do you have in strength, because melee and unarmed damage are both now going to partly be a function of strength. We don't know what the calculations are yet, but we know from seeing lots of the flavour text that's been shown off during the character build guides that Bethesda have released that that is going to be the case. So you're pretty much going to want your strength to be pretty much 9 straight away. Obviously I'm pretty much under no circumstances going to recommend that anything be set to 10, because we know bobbleheads are back in the game. We don't know exactly what they do, but it's overwhelmingly likely that the bobbleheads for the special classes will increase your special permanently +1. Obviously that will get you both melee weapon crafting and armor crafting on strength 3 and 4 nice and early in the game. We don't know exactly what strength 9 is yet. That's the one with the guy holding the axe with his feet in the ground. Some people are saying that that's knockdown. My theory is still that that's some form of variation of superior defender. Of course we could all be right, because it's worth remembering a perk is not just one thing. A perk has multiple ranks, so it's entirely possible that both of those things may be represented. But whatever it is, it's clearly something to do with melee weapons because he's holding an axe, so potentially taking it very early on in the game could be a very powerful thing. Strength 8 we also don't know. I've got my own theories about what that is. A very popular theory is obviously we know that now weapons can be used for melee damage too. So for example, like bayonets is the most obvious example, but we've seen that in the little kind of weapon crafting bits that were shown off in E3. So we know that's a thing. Potentially Strength 8 has something to do with that, so that might be a fun kind of new twist for your melee and unarmed characters if they also used, rifle butts, pistol whipping, stuff like that. That may be what's on Strength 8. If so, then obviously that will be a fun thing for you to have nice and early on. Perception set to 1. There's basically no need for a melee unarmed character to be having perception in this game, because one of the main things that perception does is it influences your accuracy in VATS. As you're a melee or unarmed character, you're going to be standing at point blank range. Your VATS chance to hit is going to be 95% anyway, so you don't need the additional accuracy from perception. And there doesn't seem really to be anything else in there that's going to be an obvious use to a melee or unarmed character. Endurance, I'm going to say set that at about 5, so pretty much medium. Obviously having access to toughness and life give will just give you a bit more extra survivability, and chem resistant might be useful too potentially. Arguably this is higher than it technically needs to be, but as a melee unarmed character, you're probably going to be running through fire to close the distance, so you're going to be under fire than more characters. It will be useful for you to have a little bit of extra health. Plus, there's another benefit to endurance that I'll get to when it's relevant in a moment. Charisma, you're just going to want to keep that at 1. There's basically nothing you're going to want in there. You may wish to boost that to 2 down the line for Black Widow or its variations, because that's just free bonus damage with, any weapon, so that's just a way of doing some free extra damage. But I would say that's something that you do down the line, not something that you do with the initial build. So Charisma, I'd say stick to 1. Intelligence, 2. Not much that you need in there. You don't need gun crafting, unless you've got a particular hankering for creating guns that you can then use for pistol whipping and so forth, which you could theoretically do down the line, but it's not going to be like your priority for starting. You can start off with just melee and unarmed. So I'm going to say just have intelligence at 2, because you're going to need medicine. Again, you're a character that's going to be under a lot of fire. You're going to be dishing out a whole lot of damage, because if VATS works like it used to, then melee and unarmed within VATS gets double damage. So you're going to be dealing out huge damage once you've closed the gap, but you are going to also be taking a lot of damage. So take that extra endurance, make sure you've got the medicine skill with intelligence too. Agility, to my mind, should be the secondary kind of special skill of a melee character. And that's for 2 main reasons. The first is there's a lot of perks in agility that a melee and unarmed character should really be making use of. Firstly, you've got stealth on agility 3, which is pretty damn important, so you can potentially kind of sneak around characters for those close range sneak attack criticals, which again are absolutely devastating for melee characters. You've got the evasion skill on agility 6. Again, we don't know exactly how that works yet, whether that's kind of an active or a passive evasion skill, but if you're going to be being shot at, then it's probably useful that you've got the ability to avoid some bullets that are being thrown at you. And you've got Ninja on agility 7. Again, we haven't seen how this works, but of course back in Fallout 3 and New Vegas, that did give you additional damage to your melee weapons, so that's kind of worth having potentially early on for a melee and unarmed character. The other reason you're going to want high agility is related to action points, and not so much because of VATS, as we've already discussed. You're not really going to be worrying too much about VATS as a melee unarmed character. You can potentially just run in and close the distance. It's about sprinting, because obviously now, a new addition to kind of the Fallout franchise and modern Fallout, much like in Skyrim, how you could sprint using your stamina meter, in Fallout 4 you can sprint using your action points. As we've discussed already, you're going to be under fire, so you're going to want to close the distance as quickly as possible. Sprinting up to everyone who you want to murder with your melee weapon or your unarmed skill is going to be ludicrously important. So you're going to want a load of action points, not so that you can use all the VATS, but so that you can sprint in as fast as possible. And while Agility 7 doesn't give you access to the sprinting skill, however that works on Agility 9, it will still be very, very close by. This is also what that endurance is useful for, because endurance determines how quickly action points are burned up by sprinting. So if you want a character that can sprint for a very long time, you're going to need high agility and high endurance. So I would say for a melee and an armed character, you're going to want a character that's a bit tough, that can sprint an awful lot, and that does a huge amount of damage with their melee weapons. And I would say for that, therefore, the combination of strength 9, endurance 5, and agility 7 is the best balance you can hope for. That just leaves a handful of points left over to get you up to luck 3, and that's basically just to get Bloody Mess, because we know Bloody Mess is free extra damage. Basically that's just increasing the amount of damage and DPS you can dish out. So that's my recommendation for how you want to be building your melee characters at level 1 as you start the game. There is, however, an alternative melee build that I considered that's entirely based on the fact that we have no idea what some of the high level perks do or are yet. And for that, I've kind of come up with an alternative build for melee characters that I kind of call the Lucky Punch build. Now this build's a little bit more unusual. Strength only 4, you'll be boosting that later. That still gives you access to melee weapon crafting and armor crafting and all the weapon skills you'll need, both Little Leagues and Iron Fist, so that's fine. Perception, still 1. Endurance, 4. Charisma, 1. Intelligence, 2. Again, same as above. Agility 6, so you can still access the Agility 6 evasion perk, and luck at 10, and that's because we just do not know what the luck 9 and luck 10 perks do yet. but both of them could be hugely important. Everyone keeps calling Luck 9 Luck of the Irish, by the way. I don't know where this came from because it's never been officially confirmed. I mean, looking at the picture, it's vastly more likely to be called Fighting Irish because it's clearly based on the Notre Dame mascot, the Fighting Irish. So I don't even know where Luck of the Irish came from. Because the little Vault Leprechaun is very clearly fighting, that strikes me as very likely to be a perk that will be of interest and use to an unarmed character. We don't know how exactly. If I had to guess, based on the fact that it lives in the luck tree, it'll be something to do with giving a very large number of critical hits to a melee character. Now that's interesting, because if you think about it, we don't know how much damage being strength 9 versus strength 4 will actually increase by, but if it's less than double, a perk that gives you double damage every time that you land a blow could theoretically be more useful. You might actually be increasing your damage output by having Luck 9 available to you immediately than you are by actually having Strength at a high level. We just don't know yet. And as for Luck 10, again, nobody actually knows what that is. Lots of people claim they know, but nobody actually knows. Everyone is just guessing, same as me. Someone did point out after I made my perks video that obviously there is a clock in the background that could suggest theoretically maybe that's bullet time. Maybe it's a very high powered evasion perk, we just don't know. But again, if you're a melee character and you want to close range with someone, having all their bullets potentially miss or being able to dodge all of their bullets could be very, very useful. So that could be a very fun, interesting melee build to go with Luck at 10 right from level 1. If those perks are both roughly what I think they're going to be, then that could be incredibly powerful to be able to take those two perks when you enter level 2 and then level 3. You could be hugely powerful and hard to hit. It could be very powerful. Moving now to a build that's kind of one that's very close to my own heart, the Sniper build, arguably one of the most powerful builds in both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. The idea being that you use rifles, you stay at a distance, you snipe characters off, and you rely on sneak attack criticals to do damage, ending fights before enemies even know where the hell you are. Now this build's changed dramatically since Fallout 3, so this one's kind of well worth paying attention to. Strength 1. Now that's not perfect, obviously. It means you're not going to have access to armor crafting, so you'll have to kind of get up to that later by using the equivalent of intense training to just increase your strength up to 3 down the line. It also is going to mean you're a bit light on carry capacity, but that's just a sacrifice I think as a sniper you're going to have to make because there are just not enough special perks to distribute otherwise. Perception, this is going to be your key skill as a sniper now, which it never really used to be, but that's now how it's become. And I would recommend that be set at 8. Obviously, Rifleman is your main weapon skill, so you're going to want access to that right away. The awareness perk on Perception 3 is pretty crucial, because as a sniper, you basically want the first bullet you fire to be the one that kills your enemy. You want to make sure that you're not accidentally about to fire on someone who's actually 20 levels higher than you and will then immediately come over and murder you, because snipers tend to be a little bit fragile. We're glass cannon characters. You want to make sure that you're not picking a fight with the wrong person. Awareness will be useful for that, for making sure you understand the level and weaknesses of the character that you're about to fire on. The weaknesses will also be useful, because of course, as a sniper character, you might theoretically be using now an energy weapon sniper rifle as opposed to a traditional bullet sniper rifle, as we have seen during the E3 conference that energy sniper rifles are now going to be a thing. And to my mind, that sounds pretty damn cool. So it'll definitely be useful to make sure that you're picking the right targets with the right weapons. Lockpick will be useful for sniper characters because sniper characters don't always want to pick every single fight. Sniper characters may well want to sneak around and will also want to bypass battlefields in order to get up to an advantageous position. Lockpick will help you do that. Now the big one, of course, on Perception 8 itself is the Sniper perk. We don't know how that works yet. Obviously back in Fallout 3 and New Vegas that just increased your chance of hitting headshots in VATS. It's extremely unlikely to be doing just that now because it's very likely to have multiple ranks. We don't know what they are, but if you're building a sniper character, it's reasonable to suggest that having access to whatever the sniper perks are going to be is going to be of use. And even if the rank 1 perk is not necessarily that useful to you, it will still be useful to have high perception because snipers want to keep their distance, so they're going to be wanting to see enemies showing up on the compass markers as early as possible, which perception will also help with. Endurance, Sniper's going to want that as 1. There is nothing that you need here. You might want to boost it later just for Life Giver, Chem resistant perhaps, just for a dose of Psycho, just for that first shot, and just for a bit of additional damage resistance, but there is nothing really that a sniper needs in Endurance, so I would say snipers want to start off with Endurance at 1. Charisma, 1. Nothing that snipers need in here either, though again, just like a melee character, you might boost it to 2 later just to take Black Widow. Intelligence, 4. You're going to want gun nut as soon as possible. There's no guarantee the game's going to give you a decent sniper rifle at any point in the early game, so therefore you're going to be wanting to build your own as early as possible. Meanwhile, Intelligence 4 also gives you access to hacking, so just like lockpicking, you can work your way around battlefields and just manipulate them to your advantage a bit better. Agility, I'd recommend 7 for that. Obviously, you've got stealth at agility 3, which is going to be hugely important for a sniper staying hidden, because you have to stay hidden as a sniper, because you desperately need to get that sneak attack critical. Meanwhile, you've got ninja at agility 7, again, very likely to be bonus sneak attack damage, because that's what it's always done traditionally. And all of those ones earlier in the build means you've now got enough special points left over to have luck 6. And the reason you want that is because you want better criticals as soon as possible. A sniper's entire power comes in how much damage can they do with that first sneak attack critical. Better criticals is essential to that. There's basically no sniper character that you're not going to take better criticals on as soon as it becomes available in Fallout 3 or New Vegas. Having access to the first rank of that immediately at like level 2 or 3 would be insanely powerful. Plus, of course, once again, you've got Bloody Mess to increase your damage. The exact way that you build your sniper over the first 6 levels is kind of questionable. Early perks you're going to want to prioritise are Rifleman for added rifle damage, better criticals, Sniper depending on what it does, Ninja again depending on exactly what it does, and Gun Nut. If you take those and have all of those by like level 6 or 7, then there's a good chance you're going to be able to do insanely high damage versus the enemies that are around you. That's probably going to be the best way to build a sniper character in Fallout 4. So let's move on to another character that I particularly like playing as, the Pacifist. This build works whether you're looking to just primarily use the non-violent solutions to problems, but you're also happy to actually, occasionally get involved in a gunfight. But it's also designed to work for true pacifist runs, so basically the characters that want to have 0 kills. Bethesda have already said that they're kind of looking at setting up the game to facilitate people who want to play the absolute pacifist style, but I think have also said that as far as they're concerned, they don't want to build the game so that 0 kills is possible. I'll probably be trying to do a 0 kills build sooner or later, but we'll see how difficult it is. So, strength, set that as 1. You're basically going to be skipping all of the strength skills. You're giving up on all armor crafting. You don't need armor crafting. You can handle that via merchants, which we'll come to when we talk about charisma. Obviously, this means that your carry capacity is going to be very low, but because you're not killing anyone, there's going to be much less looting to do, so arguably that shouldn't even matter. Meanwhile, you're not going to be building or maintaining the best guns in the game, so gun weight's going to be relatively low. I'd say you don't really need much more carry capacity than Strength 1's going to give you. Perception, you're going to need that at 4. Lockpick to skirt around encounters is obviously very important, as is awareness on Perception 3. Awareness is important because awareness will tell you what level an enemy is, and that's incredibly important for a reason I will get to in just a moment. Endurance 3. Just take a bit of endurance because there's a good chance you will be shot at, and endurance 3 is just enough to take life giver for an extra 30 HP. Charisma 10. Again, this is one of those rare instances where it might actually be fun to have a stat at 10 immediately. Obviously, the reason we're taking Charisma 10 is we want access to Intimidation, Wasteland Whisperer, and Animal Friend for being able to tame and then turn into allies people, abominations, and animals, respectively. Which you take first depends on what order the game is going to throw stuff at you. Based on what we've already been shown at E3, the very early bit where you get your dog and then the mole rats pop out of the ground, it's fairly traditional in Fallout that the first enemies that you'll run into in the early levels are going to be bugs and animals, so you might want to take Animal Friend first. After that, it's very likely that you'll start running into some basic low-level raiders, so you might want to take Intimidation second, and then Wasteland Whisperer third, because I would strongly imagine the game is not going to be a big enough jerk to start throwing abominations at you right away. Taking those perks almost immediately is also why we needed that Perception at 4 for the awareness perk. So as a reminder as to how these things work, basically Bethesda have said, if an enemy is charging at you, whether it be an animal, an abomination, or a person, if you've got all of those skills, if you point your gun at them, and they are a lower level than you, then there is a chance, and we do not know what chance, that they will either back down and flee, or start working for you, or take orders directly from you depending on what rank of the perks you've taken. Which is what makes awareness so very important, because if a giant mutant bear is running at you, you need to know whether it's a lower level than you, in which case stand your ground and point a gun at it and it will become your friend soon, or if it's a higher level than you, in which case Animal Friend will not do anything and you need to start running now. So awareness will be hugely important for those kind of pacifist characters. You've also got within the charisma tree the local leader, which lets you build settlements and start running merchant caravans to your settlements. Now that's hugely important because we're going to be doing 0 crafting with this character, so if you want good armor, and you're going to need good armor because there's a good chance you're going to be shot upon and you're not going to be able to return fire at all, then you're going to need extremely good damage resistance. And it's kind of been hinted at by Bethesda that they wanted to offer multiple different ways to get good armor in the game, so you can either craft it yourself or you can buy it from merchants if you support merchant caravans running to your settlement. So if you just build a good settlement, take local leader and start running merchant caravans to your settlement and have traders visiting your settlements, you'll be able to buy good armor from them rather than crafting it yourself, so that gets around the problem of strength only being 1. And the same thing's true for getting hold of extremely good quality guns if you're the sort of kind of pacifist non-violent character who's up for the occasional bit of violence. You can get your good quality guns from them. Intelligence, set that at 2 as a minimum because you're going to be needing medicine, and that leaves you a couple short of hacking, which you'll need. You could arguably have intelligence at 3, so you're only 1 short of hacking. You don't actually need gun nut though, so that's kind of a bit of a wasted point. You might theoretically wish to put that extra point into endurance instead and boost your way up to intelligence 4 for hacking down the line. Agility, 6. You're going to be wanting evasion just like a melee character because you're going to be under fire a lot. And again, like a melee character, you've got Action Boy on Agility 5, meaning you can sprint away with enough action points to make it quite a far distance, and that Endurance 3 will help make that run a little easier as well. And of course, luck only needs to be at 1. Luck is not needed here. You're not going to be getting critical hits because you're not going to be attacking anything. So luck can just be at 1 for these characters. And finally, I want to talk about my more generally recommended general play build. So obviously there's a lot of new stuff going on in Fallout 4, and because you don't know how the systems work yet, you might not necessarily know what character you want to build. You might just want to dabble with everything. With only 21 additional special points to spend, dabbling's quite hard to do. So I've kind of been looking over all the perks, and I think I've come up with a build that will let you dabble in everything in the most intelligent way possible. So if you're not sure what you want to do and you just want to be able to experience everything in Fallout 4 without anything being locked away from you, then I'd strongly recommend kind of this build. Strength 3, so that means you've got armor crafting and you've also got melee and unarmed weapon skills available to you. So you can build good quality armor and you can also do melee weapons if that's what you choose to do ultimately. Perception 4, that gets you lockpicking, which is pretty damn crucial. It gets you awareness, so you're kind of aware of what's going on around you and how tough all the enemies are. And it gets you rifleman if you decide to go with rifles on occasion. Endurance 5, that'll just get you a little bit of extra health, which is always useful. Obviously you'll have toughness and you'll be able to explore because of course the new swimming skill is quite interesting. That's kind of the first time we've already had a swimming skill. So if you're interested in going for a little swim and exploring underwater, which I think is kind of going to be a fun, interesting thing to do, then yeah, Endurance 5 could be a very good level. Charisma, set that at 4. The reason you're going to want to do that is because obviously we know that you're going to get your dog pretty early on into the game, so being able to try out all the kind of new abilities that your dog's going to have could be very, very good fun. Plus, that puts local leader only 2 points of charisma away. That lives on charisma 6. So you'll be able to get up to local leader very, very easily if you decide to try your hand at building a settlement and you enjoy it enough that you want to start running caravans through it. Intelligence, I'm going to say that you're going to want to put that at 6. That's because the crafting skills live relatively high up in the intelligence tree. Obviously you're going to want gun nut, but also you potentially might want to have energy weapons just to dabble with at a very early level. Also that obviously gives you medicine and hacking, 2 pretty core skills. Agility, just put that at 3, that's pretty much just so you have access to stealth. And luck, again, only put that at 3 so you can take bloody mess and you can kind of play and enjoy all the lovely explosion animations they'll have added. So that's the best generalist build I could kind of think of putting together. That'll let you kind of dabble in everything. You'll be able to do all the crafting, you'll be able to use any weapon in the game that the game's going to throw at you early on. You'll have to do some very minor increases to your special to get access to all the weapons because explosives and big guns are not included in that point distribution. But you'll also be able to play around with your dog, you'll be able to do stealth, you'll be able to do all the lockpicking and the hacking, and you'll have access to bloody mess. I just think that's probably the best generalist build, and there's a very good chance when I'm playing Fallout 4, that's the sort of build I will go for. There is, however, one thing that I need to discuss with you, and this is a very important thing to have a think about, and this is the intelligence dilemma. So obviously we now know that the way intelligence works has completely changed. The way intelligence used to work was it gave you more skill points per level. Now that skill points are dead, instead intelligence gives you more XP per whatever thing you've just done, so you will level up faster. Now in the Fallout franchise we're totally familiar with that. We've had Swift Learner perk available to us in both Fallout 3 and New Vegas, but no one in Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas ever really took Swift Learner because in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas you were always going to hit the level cap anyway, at level 20 being boosted to 30 through DLC in Fallout 3 and level 30 boosted up to 50 in New Vegas, though arguably you are less likely to hit the level 50 level cap in Fallout New Vegas. I mean, I've played games where I've played through the entirety of the game, played most of the quests and done pretty much everything in all of the DLC and still have ended up with a character that's still only in the low 40s, so I think it's hard to do in New Vegas. But regardless, very few people took Swift Learner. Now that changes a lot in Fallout 4 because there's no level cap, and that was the only reason Swift Learner was a bad idea, is because due to the level cap there was a finite number of perks you could take that you were going to hit that finite limit anyway, so you didn't want to waste one of them getting to that finite level cap sooner. When there's no level cap, arguably there's no reason not just to get your intelligence up as high as possible. Let me give you an example here. Let's say for the sake of argument that you want your character ultimately to have Strength and Intelligence 5, because what you ultimately want is access to all the perks and ranks of perks at Strength and Intelligence 5 and below, but you have no interest in any of the perks any higher than that. So therefore you have two ways that you could build your character. You could build your character by saying, okay, so at the initial special point distribution, I'm going to set Strength at 5 and Intelligence at 5, and then I'm going to go on my way. Or you could set Strength at 1 and Intelligence at 9, deliberately taking Intelligence higher than anything you'll ever need, because for whatever reason you're not interested in the Intelligence 6, 7, 8 or 9 perks. You're never going to take them, you're only taking this for the increased experience points. So straight away the character in Universe B is at a disadvantage because they don't have access to any of the perks for Strength 2, Strength 3, Strength 4 or Strength 5, and indeed they'll have to waste 4 levels boosting their Strength back up to 5 before they've got their Strength where they wanted it in the first place. But instead of thinking about it that way, let's just take both of those characters, throw them out into the world and assume that we play them exactly the same way, doing exactly the same quests. 5 hours later, the character from Universe A might be level 10, whereas the character from Universe B is level 12. They've done the same things, but they got more XP from them, so they leveled up faster. And I think now you're probably starting to see where I'm going with this. High intelligence means you will level up faster, meaning that for doing the same amount of activity and putting in the same number of hours of playtime, you will be at a higher level than someone who had lower intelligence. I'd say most players are going to want their character to have, ultimately, not necessarily in the initial special distribution, but ultimately you're going to want your intelligence to be at least 4, so you've got access to hacking so that you're not constantly being shut out by not being able to hack computers. Now if that's true, then when you're setting up your character initially, if you were to set your intelligence to 9 and just make sacrifices elsewhere across the board, then basically what you're saying is you are 5 levels behind, because now you've got to spend 5 levels increasing whatever it is you would have increased otherwise back up to the level you actually wanted to be at. How many hours in playtime does it take for an Intelligence 9 character to be 5 levels higher than a character with Intelligence 4? That's the really big question. We don't know the mathematics of it yet. But if that's doable in, say, only 10 hours, you'd kind of be mad not to always take Intelligence 9. No matter what character you ultimately wanted to build, you'd always want your character to be Intelligence 9, boosted to Intelligence 10 as soon as possible with the Intelligence bobblehead, assuming that's in a even vaguely accessible location. Because as soon as you've put in those hours that mean you are now 5 levels ahead of where you would have been otherwise, then after that point, every single thing you do, you're just getting further and further ahead of a character who's got low intelligence. So you're basically just getting more and more perks, more and more special points. You are basically in special and perk profit, if you like. This is even more important for players who are considering wanting to toy with energy weapons, because if you're wanting to toy with energy weapons, sooner or later, you're going to want your intelligence to be at 6. Now, if you want your intelligence to be at 6 anyway, ultimately, why not just start off with your intelligence at 9? Because then at that point, you've only got to play for as many hours as the additional experience you're getting from intelligence 9 gets you 3 levels ahead of where you would have been otherwise, and again, you're back into special and perk profits. Now, until we've seen the mathematics of how much additional XP per rank of intelligence you're actually getting, I can't say any of this for absolute certain, but what I will strongly imagine is going to be the case is, the moment we start understanding how Fallout 4 works and people start power leveling and start trying to play it in the most optimal way possible, I strongly imagine that all the characters that we're going to see, who are being played by people who understand how the game works, are going to have Intelligence 9, same as now. And that's partly because if you want your character to be perfect, i.e. having special 10 across the board and having every single rank of every single perk, that's going to take you to something in the range of level 370. So getting as much experience out of everything that you do is probably going to be as important as possible. But for the moment, I'm not going to recommend that. We simply don't have enough information about how much bonus XP per action taken you get for having intelligence at 9 rather than 6. So instead, I'm going to stick with my recommendation for general play there. So there we are. Those are my recommended builds in terms of initial distribution of special points. Hopefully that helps a few of you kind of build a character nice and quickly on November the 10th so that you can get right into enjoying Fallout 4 without having to and ah about where to put your special points while looking up the perk chart on your phone to try and figure out what perks you do and don't want. So there's that, ladies and gentlemen, just a quick little video looking at Fallout 4 again, and hopefully that will be of use to some of you in thinking about how to plan your character, and so you can get on with playing Fallout 4 as soon as possible when it launches, which is very soon indeed, and isn't that marvellous indeed. So yes, some more Fallout 4 related stuff soon, I'm very, very sure, but in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, I've been John, it's been many a true nerd, and this has just been my Fallout 4 Day 1 Character Build Guide. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Haha, I'm a genius at time. Oh, okay, this escalated quickly. I'd like to fly your drone. So good about a butterfly in a bucket. What does that tell you about the human condition? Are we the butterfly and is capitalism the bucket? What happens if you go right to the back in time? The very beginning of time. Oh, you literally just burn the universe.